Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So today we're going to be tackling something that's super important for any project out there, work plans and evaluations.
Right. Those essential elements for success.
Exactly. We're going to be using two key sources to guide our conversation today, the grading rubric and the project template. So think of this as your cheat sheet for navigating these sometimes tricky waters.
Absolutely. Having a clear roadmap and a way to track your progress is crucial.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So let's start with that grading rubric. It's broken down into four main criteria, each worth 25 points. Detailed work plans, evaluation strategy, overall organization, and clarity.
All adding up to that magic number 100.
Now, one thing that really jumped out to me in the rubric was that to get an exceptional score for detailed work plans, you need to demonstrate an intricate understanding of the project.
And that's key. It's not just about listing tasks. It's about really understanding how all the pieces fit together.
And the rubric also mentions clearly outlining tasks, milestones, and responsibilities. So it seems like we need to get pretty granular here.
You got it. It's about knowing who's doing what, when, and how it all contributes to the bigger picture.
Okay, so we need to get specific. But for those of us who might be feeling a little overwhelmed by that level of detail, that's where I think the LAPT 610 project template comes in.
Absolutely. The template is like your practical companion to the rubric. It helps you translate those criteria into actionable steps.
So it's kind of like our training wheels for achieving those top marks on the rubric.
Yeah, a great way to think about it. And if you look at the template, you'll see it has dedicated sections for both detailed work plans and evaluation strategy, which directly correspond to those rubric requirements.
I see. So the template's like our step-by-step guide, walking us through how to hit those high standards.
Exactly. For example, in the detailed work plan section, it prompts you to think about tasks, timelines, deliverables, all those things the rubric is looking for.
And then in the evaluation strategy section, it guides you through choosing the right measurement methods, defining your metrics and KPIs, and even establishing a timeline for those evaluations.
Right. It's all about making sure you're measuring what matters and staying on track.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these two resources work together. The rubric sets the bar, and the template gives us the tools to reach it. But how can our listener use all of this information to actually build a work plan and evaluation strategy that sets them up for success?
Well, it all starts with having crystal clear goals. Before you even dive into tasks and timelines, you need to ask yourself, what does success look like for this project? What are those tangible outcomes you're aiming for?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's easy to get caught up in the details without first establishing a clear vision.
Absolutely. Once you have those goals in sight, then you can use the detailed work plan section of the template to break down the project into smaller, more manageable tasks.
Kind of like creating a roadmap with clear milestones along the way.
Exactly. And each of those tasks should have a deadline and a clear owner, someone who's responsible for making it happen.
So we're not just listing tasks, we're assigning ownership and setting deadlines.
Right. It's about accountability and creating a timeline that keeps everyone moving forward.
Got it. So we've broken down the project into manageable chunks with deadlines and assigned responsibilities. What's next?
Now it's time to identify those key milestones and deliverables. These are the markers of progress that show you're on the right path.
So milestones are like those checkpoints on our roadmap, making sure we're headed in the right direction.
Exactly. And deliverables are those tangible outputs that demonstrate progress toward those milestones.
Okay, so we've got our roadmap, our milestones, and our deliverables all mapped out.
Yeah.
Now, what about that evaluation strategy? I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up.
Yeah, I understand evaluation can feel daunting, but it doesn't have to be. Think of it as a way to gather information and ask, are we on track to reach our destination?
Okay, so it's about using data to inform our decisions and make sure we're headed in the right direction.
Exactly, and the evaluation strategy section in the template can help guide you through that process. It prompts you to consider different measurement methods and to define those specific metrics that align with your goals.
So we need to choose the right methods for gathering data
Yeah,
and make sure those metrics are actually telling us something meaningful.
right. It's not just about collecting data. It's about collecting the right data and knowing how to interpret it.
So the template helps us figure out what to measure and how to measure it. But how do we actually put this all together into a coherent evaluation strategy?
Well, the template prompts you to think about things like the timing of your evaluations and the specific tools or methods you'll be using. It's about having a plan for how you'll collect, analyze, and report on your data.
So it's like creating a blueprint for the evaluation process.
Exactly. And as you're working through this section, remember those rubric criteria we talked about, clarity and overall organization, are crucial for a successful evaluation strategy.
So it's not just about having a plan, it's about having a plan that's clear, concise, and easy to follow.
Exactly. A well-organized evaluation strategy will make it easier to collect and analyze your data. And it will also make it easier to communicate your findings to others.
So we're not just evaluating for ourselves, we're also thinking about how we'll present this information to stakeholders.
Right. Whether it's your professor, your boss, or your team, you want to be able to clearly articulate your findings and demonstrate the value of your work.
So it sounds like a clear, well-organized plan is essential for both the work itself and for communicating the results of that work.
Absolutely. And
Right.
that applies to both the detailed work plans and the evaluation strategy.
You're right. It's all about creating a roadmap that's easy to follow and a system for tracking progress that's both informative and insightful.
Exactly. And remember, the goal here is to create a plan that sets you up for success, not just in terms of completing the project, but also in terms of learning and growing from the experience.
Yeah, I think that's a key takeaway. It's not just about checking boxes. It's about using these tools to become more effective planners and evaluators.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And those are skills that will serve you well in any field.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the importance of clear goals. We've looked at how to break down a project into manageable tasks and how to develop a comprehensive evaluation strategy.
And we've seen how the grading rubric and the project template can work together to guide us through this process.
Exactly. So now that we have a solid understanding of the fundamentals, let's move on to some practical tips and strategies for actually putting these tools into action.
Sounds good. Let's dive in. So when we think about putting all this into practice, it's important to remember that these tools aren't meant to be static documents.
Right. They're not just set it and forget it kind of things.
Exactly. They should evolve alongside your project, that detailed work plan section, for instance.
Yeah. It's not like we carve it in stone, right?
Nope. As you gather data and evaluate your progress, you might find that certain tasks need to be adjusted.
Or maybe the timeline needs a little tweaking.
Exactly. Or you might need to shift resources around. A little flexibility goes a long way.
It's like navigating with a map.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to take a detour.
Precisely. And that's where the evaluation strategy comes in. It helps you recognize when those detours are necessary.
By keeping us on track and helping us measure our progress against our goals.
Right. You're constantly checking in, seeing if you're still headed in the right direction.
So it's not just a one-time evaluation at the end. It's an ongoing process.
Exactly. Think of it as those regular pit stops on a road trip. You check your fuel tire pressure, make sure you're still headed where you want to go.
I like that analogy. It makes the whole evaluation thing seem a lot less intimidating.
It's all about staying informed and making adjustments as needed.
So we're not just proving that we did the work, we're actually using the data to make the project better.
Absolutely. You might discover that one approach isn't as effective as you thought, or that a certain element of your project is really resonating with your audience.
And then we can use those insights to fine-tune our approach.
Right. It becomes a cycle of planning, acting, evaluating, and then adjusting based on what you've learned.
So it's this dynamic feedback loop that keeps the project moving forward.
Exactly. And speaking of moving forward, remember those rubric criteria we talked about, clarity and overall organization? Those are super important, not just for the work plan itself.
But for how we communicate our progress and findings.
Absolutely. No matter how brilliant your ideas or impressive your results, they need to be presented in a clear and logical way.
It's like telling a story. It needs a beginning, a middle, and an end.
And a clear message or takeaway. What are the key insights you want your audience to grasp?
So it's not just about the data itself. It's about crafting a narrative around it.
Exactly. And that narrative should highlight the impact and value of your work.
Whether that audience is a professor, a boss, or even just ourselves, right?
Absolutely. Imagine you're presenting your project to a panel of judges. A well-organized presentation that tells a clear story is going to make a much bigger impact.
It shows that you can not only do the work, but also communicate it effectively.
And those communication skills are valuable in any field.
It's not just about this one project. It's about developing skills that will serve us throughout our careers.
And even in our personal lives. Think about how these principles could apply to a personal goal.
Yeah, like learning a new language.
Exactly. You could break down the process into tasks, set deadlines, track your progress. It's the same approach, just applied in a different context.
So these tools are really versatile. They can help us achieve any goal we set our minds to.
That's the power of a structured and intentional approach.
I'm already feeling more organized just thinking about it.
That's great. And remember, even though we've been focusing on the practical side of things, don't forget about the learning that happens along the way.
Right. It's not just about checking things off a list. It's about expanding our understanding and growing as individuals.
Right. It's not just about the end product. It's about the journey and what we learn along the way.
And the skills we develop.
Absolutely.
I'm really appreciating the depth of this conversation. It's gone beyond just the nuts and bolts of work plans and evaluations.
Yeah. We're really getting into the bigger picture here.
Right. It's about developing a mindset, a way of approaching any challenge with intention and a clear plan.
Exactly. And those are skills that are transferable to any area of life.
This whole deep dive has really been about equipping ourselves with the tools for success, not just for this one project.
But for anything we set our minds to.
Exactly. And for our listener today, I think they're walking away with a really solid understanding of how to create a detailed work plan
And how to develop a robust evaluation strategy.
and how to use both of those things to not just succeed, but to really excel.
Right. And to learn and grow along the way.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. I feel like I have a whole new appreciation for the power of planning and evaluation.
Me too. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive for today. We hope you found this exploration valuable.
And remember, these tools are just that, tools. They're here to support you, to help you achieve your goals.
So take what you've learned and put it into action.
And don't be afraid to adapt and adjust as you go.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep striving for excellence.